Two burglars thought their job would be easy when they spotted the old security guard, a man leaning on his cane, walking slowly, looking harmless and defenseless. But the faded tattoo on Samuel Thompson's arm showed he was called by a very different name 25 years ago. And that night, reflexes he thought were forgotten would return. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful journey, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us keep these voices alive. It was midnight in Brooklyn's Crown Heights neighborhood. As the streetlights cast their dim glow, 68-year-old Samuel Thompson was making his usual nightly rounds. This elderly security guard, who had been protecting the same neighborhood for 15 years, wasn't a threat to anyone. He walked slowly, leaning on his cane, occasionally checking dark corners with his flashlight. Samuel was an ordinary man. He lived in a modest apartment trying to get by on his retirement pension. The neighborhood residents respected him, but they also saw him as old and defenseless. Children called him Mr. Sam, and women would help him carry grocery bags. But Samuel Thompson had a life in his past that no one knew about. The faded tattoo on his arm, a symbol with an eagle and stars, was the only clue. And that night, this past would return. At 12:47 a.m., Samuel was about to complete his final round on Jefferson Avenue. He was thinking about going home and the birthday gift he would buy for his granddaughter. 8-year-old Emma, who was about to turn 9, meant everything to him. She was the only light in Samuel's life. Just then, as he passed the old antique shop on Park Street, he heard the sound of breaking glass. Samuel stopped and listened carefully. Silence. Then footsteps. Samuel slowly approached the antique shop. He took out his flashlight but didn't turn it on yet. With 15 years of security experience, he understood the seriousness of the situation, but at the same time, something he never expected awakened inside him. An old feeling, a familiar tension. As he approached the shop, he saw two silhouettes. The first burglar, about 25 years old, athletic build, holding a screwdriver. The second was slightly older, in his 30s, keeping watch in the darkness. Neither had noticed Samuel. Samuel hesitated for a moment. His thoughts were, call the police, stay away, don't put yourself in danger. That's what a 68-year-old man should do. But then he looked at the tattoo on his arm. He heard the whisper of that old voice. Rangers never retreat. Samuel gripped his cane tightly and walked forward. "Hey!" he called out, deliberately making his voice sound weak and frightened. "Who's there?" Both burglars turned around. Their first reaction was to laugh. "Look who's here," said the bigger one. "The neighborhood watch." "Go home, old man," said the other, pointing his screwdriver at Samuel. "This ain't your business." Samuel pretended to tremble. I'm just doing my job. Please don't cause trouble. I won't call the cops." The burglars looked at each other and laughed. To them, Samuel was the perfect victim profile, old, slow, scared. "You know what we're going to do, Gramps?" said the bigger one, stepping toward Samuel. "You didn't see nothing tonight. We got a deal?" Samuel stepped back, continuing to play his role. Yes, I didn't see anything." But inside, Sergeant Major Samuel Thompson from 25 years ago was awakening. His body tensed, his breathing changed, his eyes began analyzing targets. Between 1978 and 2003, Samuel Thompson was a different man. He was one of the most elite soldiers of the 75th Ranger Regiment, Panama, Grenada, Somalia, Afghanistan. The operations where his name appeared were still in classified files. For 25 years, he had participated in the most dangerous missions, night operations, surviving behind enemy lines alone, hand-to-hand combat. Samuel's body had never forgotten these techniques, but in 2003, in Afghanistan, shrapnel had lodged in his right leg. Full recovery wasn't possible. The Army had honorably retired him. Samuel had decided to return to civilian life and leave his past behind. He had never told anyone the truth. His neighbors in the neighborhood only knew him as an old veteran who served in Vietnam. No one knew his actual rank in the army, the training he received, or the operations he participated in. Now, that night on the street, old reflexes were returning. "I'm telling you for the last time, old man," said the big burglar, moving even closer to Samuel. "Get lost." Something changed in Samuel's eyes. The warrior instinct he had suppressed for 25 years surfaced. "All right," said Samuel, dropping the tremor from his voice, "but I need to tell you something." "What?" said the smaller burglar, not taking Samuel seriously at all. Samuel slowly set down his cane. He let his arms fall to his sides and slightly spread his feet. This was a position he had taken thousands of times before. "What you're doing is a big mistake," he said, his voice now completely different, calm but authoritative. "Because this neighborhood is my responsibility." The burglars were momentarily confused. Samuel's change in posture, the confidence in his voice, they had noticed it all. "Who do you think you are?" said the bigger one, angrily preparing to attack Samuel. At that moment, a flash appeared in Samuel's memory. 1999, Afghanistan. When an enemy fighter attacked him, the same movement, the attack came. When the big burglar made his move toward Samuel, what happened seemed like something out of a movie. Samuel sidestepped as if he had seen the attack coming. He blocked the incoming right punch with his right hand, while simultaneously applying pressure to the man's elbow with his left. The movement was so fast and precise that the attacker was on the ground before he understood what happened. The smaller burglar was shocked. He swung the screwdriver toward Samuel. Samuel's eyes calculated the screwdriver's trajectory in milliseconds. He slightly turned his body. The weapon missed completely. At the same time, he grabbed the burglar's wrist, twisted it, and pressed the man against the wall. The entire sequence was completed in 8 seconds. Both burglars were on the ground, breathing heavily, trying to understand what had happened. Samuel stood upright. His breathing wasn't even irregular. He was just sweating slightly. "I am," said Samuel, with no anger in his voice, "Retired Sergeant Major Samuel Thompson from the 75th Ranger Regiment. I protected this country for 25 years. Now I protect this neighborhood." He rolled up his sleeve. The faded but still visible tattoo appeared. Ranger tab, eagle, stars. "And now you two have a choice," he said, taking out his cell phone. "Either you get up and disappear from here, or we wait here until the police arrive." The burglars looked at each other. In Samuel's posture, his voice, every movement, there was a professional soldier. They could no longer see him as the old security guard. Okay, said the bigger one, slowly getting to his feet. "We're leaving." "But first," said Samuel, "who's going to pay for this shop's window?" The two burglars pulled out all the money from their pockets and left it at Samuel's feet. "And," said Samuel, "if I see you in this neighborhood again, I won't be nice next time." The burglars ran away. When Samuel was alone, he leaned on his cane again. His leg was aching. He had aged. But inside him was a pride he hadn't felt in a long time. He called the shop owner, explained the situation. He left the money for the window repair. As he walked home, neighborhood residents watched him from their windows. No one fully understood what had happened, but they sensed that something had changed. The next morning, neighborhood residents began coming to Samuel's door. The first to come was Mrs. Rodriguez, 75 years old, a woman living alone. "Mr. Sam," she said, "I heard about what happened last night. Were you really a soldier?" Samuel smiled. "Yes, Mrs. Rodriguez. A long time ago." "Why did you never mention it?" "Because the past should stay in the past. But sometimes the past comes back." Throughout that day, a dozen neighbors came. They all expressed their respect for Samuel. Children began calling him Hero Mr. Sam. In the evening, Samuel went to visit his granddaughter. "Grandpa," said 8-year-old Emma, "Mom said people are calling you a hero. is that true? Samuel took Emma into his lap. No, sweetheart, he said. Heroes are around us every day. Mothers, teachers, doctors. I just did my job. So what job did you do? Samuel thought. I protected people, just like I do now. Emma noticed the tattoo on her grandfather's arm. What's this? This, said Samuel, is a sign that reminds me who I was. But what's really important is who I am now. Weeks passed. Everything in the neighborhood had changed. Samuel was no longer just a security guard. He was someone who protected, watched over, and provided security. Young people greeted him with respect. Elderly people came to him for advice. Even the police had heard about the situation and congratulated Samuel. But most importantly, Samuel had made peace with himself. The identity he had hidden for 25 years was no longer a source of shame. He had served, protected his country, and now he was protecting his neighborhood. One evening, while walking his night rounds, he passed the old antique shop. The glass had been repaired. There was light inside. The shop owner came out. "Mr. Thompson," he said, "I don't know how to thank you." "No need," said Samuel. "This is my job." "No," said the man, "this is your character." As Samuel walked home, he looked up at the sky. The stars were shining. His phone in his pocket rang. It was Emma. "Grandpa, I missed you." "I missed you too, sweetheart." "Grandpa, when I grow up, I want to protect people too, like you." Samuel smiled. "Then I'll be very proud." Word of Samuel's actions spread beyond the neighborhood. Within a week, local news picked up the story. "Retired Army Ranger stops burglary at 68, read the headline in the Brooklyn Daily Eagle. But Samuel declined all interview requests. He didn't want fame. He just wanted to continue his quiet life, protecting the people he cared about. However, something unexpected happened. Other veterans in the area began reaching out, men and women who had also served, who had also been living quietly among their neighbors, hiding their past service. Tom Martinez, a former Marine who ran a coffee shop 3 blocks away, was the first to approach Samuel. "I heard what you did," Tom said during Samuel's morning coffee run. "I was in Fallujah, 2004. Haven't talked about it much since I got back." Samuel nodded. "Sometimes it's better that way. But seeing what you did, maybe it's time some of us stepped up again, not for glory, just to help." Within a month, an informal network had formed. 5 veterans in Crown Heights, all in their 60s and 70s, all looking out for their community. They didn't wear uniforms or carry weapons. They just walked their neighborhoods with a little more purpose, watched with a little more attention. The crime rate in their area dropped by 40% over the following 6 months. Emma's questions didn't stop after that first conversation. Every time she visited her grandfather, she wanted to know more about being a protector, about courage, about doing the right thing. One afternoon, as they sat in Prospect Park feeding ducks, she asked, "Grandpa, were you scared when those bad men came?" Samuel considered his answer carefully. "Yes, Emma, I was scared. But you fought them anyway?" "I did what needed to be done. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what's right even when you are scared." Emma threw a piece of bread to a particularly bold duck. "I want to be brave like you." "You already are, sweetheart. Every time you stand up for a friend at school, every time you help your mom when she's tired, every time you're kind to someone who's different, that's courage, too." These conversations became precious to Samuel. He realized that perhaps the most important mission of his life wasn't the classified operations in foreign countries. It was raising a granddaughter who understood that true strength came from protecting others. 6 months after the incident, Samuel was making his usual rounds when he noticed someone following him. It was late, around 1 a.m., and the footsteps behind him were trying to be quiet, but failing. Samuel's old instincts kicked in. He ducked into an alley and waited. The person following him was young, maybe 19 or 20. As he passed the alley, Samuel stepped out behind him. "Can I help you?" Samuel asked calmly. The young man spun around, startled. Samuel recognized him immediately. It was Marcus, the smaller burglar from that night 6 months ago. "Mr. Thompson," Marcus said, his voice shaking, I wasn't going to do nothing, I swear." Samuel studied the young man's face. He looked different, cleaner. His eyes weren't as hard as they had been that night. "What do you want, Marcus? How do you know my name?" "I made it my business to know. What do you want?" Marcus shifted nervously. "I've been clean for 4 months now. Got a job at a warehouse in Queens. But I keep thinking about that night, you know? How you could have had us arrested, but you didn't." Samuel waited. "I want to know why," Marcus continued. "Why you let us go." Samuel was quiet for a long moment. "Because sometimes people deserve a second chance, but only if they're willing to take it." "I took mine," Marcus said quickly. "I'm trying, man, really trying." "I can see that. That thing you said that night, about this neighborhood being your responsibility. I've been thinking about that too. Maybe I could help somehow, make up for what I did." Samuel looked at this young man who had once threatened him with a screwdriver. He saw something in Marcus's eyes that he recognized, the desire to serve something bigger than himself. "There's a community center on Malcolm X Boulevard," Samuel said. "They need people to help with after-school programs, kids from the neighborhood, kids who might be heading down the same path you were on." Marcus nodded eagerly. "You think they'd take someone like me?" "I think," Samuel said, "they'd take someone who's learned from his mistakes and wants to help others avoid them." 2 years later, Samuel Thompson's story had become something of a legend in Crown Heights, not because of news reports or social media posts, but because of the quiet changes that rippled through the community. The Veterans Network had grown to 12 members. They called themselves the Neighborhood Watch, though they did much more than watch. They mentored young people, helped elderly residents with groceries and repairs, and served as informal mediators when conflicts arose. Marcus had become one of their most dedicated volunteers. He now supervised the after-school program at the community center and had personally helped 6 at-risk teenagers find jobs and stay in school. Emma, now 10 years old, had started a kindness club at her school. She told everyone that her grandfather had taught her that being strong meant protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. On a warm Tuesday evening in September, Samuel was walking his rounds when he saw a commotion near the basketball courts. A group of teenagers had surrounded a smaller kid, and voices were getting heated. Samuel approached slowly. As he got closer, he heard one of the older boys say, "Nobody's going to help you, kid. This is just how it is." "Actually," came a voice from behind Samuel, "that's not how it is here." Samuel turned to see Marcus approaching, along with 2 other community center volunteers. "Mr. T," Marcus nodded to Samuel, then addressed the group. "We got a problem here?" The teenagers looked between Samuel and Marcus, recognizing both figures in the neighborhood. The confrontation deflated quickly. As the group dispersed, the smaller kid, who couldn't have been more than 13, looked up at Samuel with wide eyes. "Are you the guy?" the kid asked. "The one who stopped those burglars?" Samuel knelt down to the boy's level. "I'm just someone who believes this neighborhood should be safe for everyone. What's your name?" "David." "Well, David, if anyone ever gives you trouble again, you find me or Mr. Marcus here, okay? Nobody should have to face problems alone." As they walked away, Marcus said, "You know what's funny, Mr. T? That kid reminds me of myself at that age. Angry, scared, looking for someone to blame." "What changed?" Samuel asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Someone showed me there was another way to be strong, someone who could have destroyed my life but chose to save it instead." Samuel Thompson is now 70 years old. His hair is completely gray, his walk is slower, and he uses his cane more often than he'd like to admit. But every night, He still makes his rounds through Crown Heights. The tattoo on his arm has faded even more, but what it represents has only grown stronger. He is no longer hiding who he was, because he has found peace with who he has become. The antique shop where it all began now has a small plaque by the door, protected by our community. It's not about Samuel specifically. It's about the network of care that grew from one man's decision to step forward when it mattered. Emma is now 12 and wants to join the military when she grows up, not for glory or adventure, but because her grandfather taught her that service means putting others before yourself. Mark has completed his GED and is studying criminal justice at Brooklyn Community College. He wants to become a social worker to help kids who are where he used to be. And in a small apartment in Crown Heights, Samuel Thompson sits by his window each evening, watching over his neighborhood. Not because he has to, but because some responsibilities you carry willingly for life. He thinks about the young ranger he once was, rushing into combat zones halfway around the world. He thinks about the middle-aged man who tried to leave all that behind. And he thinks about the grandfather who learned that sometimes the most important battles are fought on the streets where you live. Samuel Thompson never sought recognition. He never wanted parades or medals or newspaper stories. All he wanted was to protect the people he cared about. And in the end, that's exactly what he did. Samuel Thompson's story reminds us that heroism isn't about age or strength or perfect conditions. It's about stepping forward when others step back. It's about using whatever skills you have, whether learned in the military or in the school of life, to make your corner of the world a little safer. Every day, there are Samuel Thompsons walking among us, veterans who served quietly and came home to serve quietly, people who have seen darkness and chosen to be light, ordinary people who become extraordinary when the moment demands it. So I ask you, have you ever met someone like Samuel Thompson? Someone who seemed ordinary until circumstances revealed their true character? Share their story in the comments. Let's honor the quiet heroes who never ask for recognition, but deserve our respect. If this story moved you, subscribe to The Human Stories. Share it with someone who needs to remember that strength comes in many forms and that it's never too late to step up when your community needs you. Thank you for watching. Until next time, remember, true courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the presence of fear for the sake of others. And if you ever see an older person walking slowly through your neighborhood, maybe with a cane, maybe with scars, maybe with a story they've never told, give them the respect they've earned. Because you might be looking at someone who shaped history and is still shaping their community, one quiet act of service at a time.